Welcome to our second video explaining the rural issues from our draft district plan. The Council recognises the need to provide for diversification in rural communities to ensure the long-term sustainability of farming and to acknowledge the potential for a range of alternative uses of rural properties that support the rural economy.
What has changed for us?
We acknowledge that activities that rely on the land have had to adapt and change to keep up with changing markets, regulations and the need to make a living. The Council is not immune to this, and we also have to update our draft plan to meet the obligations that central and regional government places on us through various legislation, policies and plans. We know that this adds to the regulatory pressure this will place on businesses, and some things are less negotiable than others. We want to hear from you on what you can live with and what you can't. A key starting point is a thing called existing use rights. Where the activity has been lawfully established, then it can continue to operate even if the district plan rules change around it. If the effects of the activity change, then that is where the existing use right can be lost. Irrespective of this, our rural zone covers the majority of the district, and the focus is on retaining the productive potential of land to be used for rural activities. Areas of the zone that have high landscape, biodiversity, cultural or historic values would have additional protections in place using overlays. The provisions for these overlays are contained in their own chapters and are mapped separately. We will address these in the environment video. The key objective of the rural zone is to provide for primary production activities and retaining the open rural character of the district.
What happens if a farmer wants to do something different?
As we've already touched on, you can generally change your farming type, providing you meet the relevant rules. Commonly, the earthworks rule is triggered, and we have sought to increase the threshold for earthworks from 50 square metres to 500 square metres, which is 10 times the area previously allowed. There are, of course, exemptions for earthworks to maintain infrastructure, as well as tighter limits in more sensitive areas, such as near waterways or power poles. Likewise, quarrying and mining trigger resource consent. So take a look at these provisions if you think you're going to do these activities on your property. There would be limits on the numbers and types of intensive indoor and outdoor farming that could be undertaken without needing a resource consent. This generally relates to pigs and poultry and the issues associated with these that need to be managed.
What are we doing about forestry and carbon farming?
We are somewhat bound by the existing National Environmental Standard for Production Forestry that overrides most of our plan provisions. Notwithstanding, we have heard the concerns about carbon farming forestry and have included provisions to require resource consent for these so that we can address the potential issues arising from this type of forestry. Do you support this or want the rules less restrictive?
Can people plant trees near their boundary?
Yes, you can, and we recognise that trees provide invaluable shade, shelter and amenity, and have allowed for these where they are not wild and conifer species. Do not shade an adjacent residential unit during certain hours, and the shelter belt is no more than 30 metres in width. You should still talk to your neighbour before planting to make sure there are no disputes later on.
Can I have a guest accommodation on site?
Yes, we have allowed for homestay and farm accommodation as permitted activities, up to a limit of 8 guests, which is up from the previous limit of 5. You can also retail farm produce and handcrafts made on site and serve refreshments to visitors as part of this. We've also allowed for recreation activities as permitted activities as well, so there are plenty of non-rural options to diversify into.
I am worried about more people living in the rural areas and complaining about my activities. How am I protected from this?
This issue is not unique to Waitaki. It's being felt elsewhere due to more people wanting the rural lifestyle that can be enjoyed. With this lifestyle comes unrealistic expectations about an idyllic rural environment, and we need to ensure that our primary production purpose is maintained. One key tool we are proposing is to increase the subdivision threshold from 4 hectares up to 20 hectares. This will reduce the number and density of houses in the rural area. Do you agree with this? We will also continue to include provisions around noise, but not at the expense of the productive use of the land. Outside these uses, there will be noise limits for different times of the day so that we can all enjoy some sleep in a generally peaceful environment.
What else can I do with a rural area without a consent?
As already mentioned, there are a range of non-rural activities that can be carried out without consent. In addition to these, you can also operate a small home business from your property, have an additional small residential unit up to 80 square metres per 20 hectares of land, as well as airstrips and landing pads for farming purposes. Is there anything else you want us to consider?
Hi, I'm Jared Ross, local farmer, and particularly interested in the Waitaki District Council's draft district plan review. This amounts to the confluence of local and central government and is required to be updated every 10 years. I'm interested to understand the multitude of current Crown legislative development and what it means for my farm and the future of this. The plan affects how you use your land, operate your business, and does offer heightened protections for the environment and biodiversity. Many of you, particularly rural, will have received in the last year some indication of land parcel reclassifications, and you'll no doubt be worried about what this means and what does it mean for the future of your property. The importance of having input on the district plan means that you can make the council aware of your worries and concerns and hopefully have these questions answered. The council have statutory obligations, as do you have property rights. We must strike a balance. My messaging is our people come first. And locally, we need to deliver a framework that empowers and enables our community to be the best that it can be. We know as farmers, we've been told for as long as I can remember, we have to tell our positive stories. And this isn't easy to do. But in this instance, it's really important that the council understands all of the good work that we take in our stride, the positive efforts with regards environmental management and restoration and protection of environmental and culturally significant natural sites. Tell the council about this. Make them aware of the effort that you already put in. Your input really does matter, and I implore you not to rely on somebody else to explain what matters to you. Certainly, making sure council are aware of what matters to you and your family for the future of farming in North Otago, now is the time to make that contribution.